Welcome to The Vault, where we reveal some of the best kept secrets for success. Our show is designed to introduce you to industry professionals in TV, movies, music, sports, and business. Now, our goal is for you to learn from their wealth of information and use it to realize your dreams. Alright guys, welcome to another episode of The Vault. Today I have a great guest by the name of Charlie Joslain, who is a commercial director as well as a creative director. So first of all, why don't you tell us a little bit about your origin story and how you became a creative director and, feature film director.
So, I'm originally French. I was born on the French West Coast and I grew up in Paris. I do not speak this way because I don't like the French accent. So I decided to watch a movie every day for 2 years, and between the age of 14 and 16, and I repeated after the VCR. Yes, I did say VCR, because I'm 35, so I'm old. And I got rid of the accent. I assumed the first impression would be better without the French accent. And then when I was 18, I moved to the UK, and within about 5 minutes, the first Brit I met told me that I was an idiot, and the French accent was sexy, and I made a big mistake. So there you go. That's the story about why I speak English the way I do, or at least try. And then I did my studies in the UK in southwest of London for 5 years. Then I moved to Munich in Germany. That was partly related to a girl. Big mistake, but it's okay. And turned out to be a very wise move. I met somebody who was a Russian producer, worked in the field of advertising. And he saw my short films at the time, thought I had some talent, some potential. Charlie, you have potential. That's as much of a compliment I ever got from him. And he thought maybe I would be good at writing, directing, so he got me started into the field of advertising in that capacity, and he really became a mentor.
So talk to us about the advertising world. What does that entail for, tell us about your journey in the advertising world.
So originally I was good with post-production, 3D motion graphics, this kind of stuff, video editing, because I could learn it by myself. And of course, being in college, I thought, well, when I graduate, I need to get a job of some sort. This is pre-YouTube, so we had the big books with how to use Final Cut, this kind of stuff. So I learned it by myself. Moved to Germany, met the guy, and he was like, okay, you seem to be good at finishing the process. Maybe you're good enough to start it. So I discovered what pitches were, how to write. He would come to me with a small client brief commercial for soap or pasta, whatever. And again, he dealt with the world, the Russian-speaking world, Turkey, Azerbaijan, also these countries we never hear about, but there's lots of oil and gas money and a huge population. There's a lot of work, and he became really big over there. So he would bring a brief and say, Charlie, you've got 2 hours to give me 5 viable ideas. And I would say, 2 hours, but it's okay, it's an hour and 59 minutes now. So great way to learn, to really squeeze your brain and to think logically as to what the target is, who wants to achieve what the message is, etc., etc. So that got me off into, as a good start, to learn how to write and how to squeeze my little brain and make viable ideas, let's put it this way. And then the production side of things, a week later, he said, okay, I'm going to shoot a commercial in Kazakhstan. Do you want to direct it, yes or no? It took me about 0.3 nanoseconds to say yes. And
that's a long time.
It was a very long time. I was hesitant. I was like, is he going to sell my kidney? I mean, he's Russian. Things took off from there. And I don't know, I did about 20 commercials with him. The rest is history, as they say.
So you worked with companies like Unicef and Barclays, and
so
tell me about the Unicef commercial specifically, because I thought that was a really nice one.
Cool. So after the 2 years in Germany, I moved back to London. This was the peak of what they call over there the credit crunch. So the big crisis in 2008. So terrible timing. Money was tight for at least 6-7 months. Ate a lot of pasta, and then a few years later, things got better. Started a little business with a friend of mine called Brieux, but everybody calls him Billy because nobody can say his French name. And it didn't work out too well because we were not good at business and getting clients. I'm good at the creative side, not the business side too much. Something came up, and we came up with this idea, or I should say since I was the creative director, came up with a concept for Unicef for landmine awareness. And we approached Unicef, we pitched it to them, they liked it very much. The big guys in New York
What's the concept? Let's for the audience who haven't
Sure.
seen the commercial.
It's very simple. It's a single tracking shot. It starts tracking along a wall. You see pairs of shoes for a little girl, and two pairs. I mean, pairs with two shoes, and another pair, and then suddenly there's just one shoe and one shoe and one shoe. And then it stops. In the bottom left corner, there's a single shoe, and then in the right side, you can see a little girl who's just walking towards her mother for a hug, but she's got only one leg. And we basically brought the concept of imagine what your life, you, Western audience, would be like should your child have the, suffer the misery of stepping on one of these landmines. So bringing what is the pain of, lots of people in the world due to unexploded devices, bringing that to the context of a familiar and comfortable Western home. Super simple, super cheap, but very effective. They loved it. And
then talk about the can component. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to...
Right. No, please. Yes, I'm too voluble at times. Do reframe me.
So tell me about how your Unicef commercial, how it was received in Cannes.
So we got nominated for a Ken Lions Award, which is the Oscars of advertising, so to speak. Sounds really fancy. It's not as big as that. Lots of people do go there. But it was still great, and at the time I was, 27, 28. I thought, this is it. I made it. I'm a big shot now. Cool. And it was received as well as any other. We didn't win, very sadly. But I realized actually going there I went to Cannes twice, both to the film festival and to the Lions Festival, which are just a month apart in the same part of the town Cannes. And the film festival was actually a lot more fun. And the film market, the people were a lot more upfront and almost quote-unquote honest about what they were selling, whereas it sounds terrible, but the advertising world being with frankly the cream of the crop of advertising, CEOs and creative directors of Saatchi and Saatchi and BBDO and like huge agencies, great experience, lovely people, but a lot of it felt like just people jumping from one agency to another, caring very much about brands as opposed to the quality of the work. Mm-hmm. The Unilever this or the campaign for Coca-Cola. And it was like, well, what about that little thing that was super funny or emotional, produced by some brand in say Romania or Thailand? It was like, Thailand's Romania. Like, who cares? I'm like, dude, the work is excellent. Mm-hmm. And I felt like it was not. I was like, do I really want to keep like working in this industry for 15, 20 years to try to reach that level? If I'm capable of it. I wasn't sure. Whereas again, the film world felt a lot more straightforward in a weird way.
So let's segue into that now. You
Sure.
do feature films, shorts, commercials, music videos. Talk to us about some of your projects, specifically the features and the TV shows that you do.
So feature films, let's hold on. Let's not call me that yet. Yet is the key word. Mm-hmm. Lots of short films, lots of commercials, lots of music videos, like so many people. Lots of corporate videos as well. So a lot of experience with that. And the short narratives, several of them I wrote. And so that has helped me transition into this, or is transitioning, I should say. And I got to be careful with this word these days. into the film world. So the first one that I managed to get auctioned is a script that I wrote called Trunk. Concept is very simple. A woman is kidnapped. She's locked in the trunk of a car, and you spend more or less the next 100 minutes locked with her inside the trunk of a car. Mm-hmm. So that's been auctioned, as well as another two that I wrote. The Sub, very different thing. Takes place in a submarine, so similar concept, I should say, but different mm-hmm. environment. And another one called Artificial, which is like Black Mirror meets Babel, if you've seen that film. Mm-hmm. So very different projects, but three good, solid feature film scripts that have been auctioned, and I'm very lucky to have met two producers, Ace Salvador, Easy Traub, who seem to think that I've got what it takes to make a good feature. So we shall see, but we're one thing at a time, so it's moving forward slowly.
So tell us some of the highs of your career so far, like some of the greatest moments that you've had.
I would say definitely this Unicef commercial that we talked about. I co-directed a documentary shot part on Everest, Mount Everest, and in the Arctic, and that was an unbelievably difficult experience. That sort of physicality is really tough.
Did you have a production crew go all the way up, or how far up?
So the co-director, who was the producer, managed to go not all the way there, not all the way up. He did go all the way to about 8,000 meters, which is, I don't know, 24,000 feet or something insane. And it was incredibly difficult. Like I lost 32 pounds in 17 days, and I didn't even go to the damn top of the mountain.
Right.
But even just
Physically,
trekking,
just taxing on your body.
once you reach, at least for me, being above 4,000 meters, 12,000 feet or so, just my body was starving for oxygen constantly. And you just literally, my body was like eating itself. So whatever. It was anything after that feels like a stroll in a park. Like just the hardest thing I've done in my life. And it's not even nowhere near as bad as what some people actually do, you know, the marathon type and whatever.
Right.
But still, it was incredibly difficult. So that was great. That was commissioned by Vimeo and a few other companies. I forgot their name. The Cannes Lions commercial, the Unicef one, as I've mentioned. Recently, a short film called Gone Dark, which is my last UK project. Actually, I've got another thing coming up, so it may not be my last. But the most recent one, we'll say, which really was my baby, written by myself and based on an idea by the lead.
So what is that about? Tell us about Gone Dark.
Gone Dark, probably the best thing that I've done. 30-minute short film, so that's a big short film. It was meant to be a big short film to really like present this as a case of me being able to like handle like a 3-act narrative, although on a short scale. So young woman clearly is is disturbed by the memories of a past relationship with an older man, mysterious guy. You never really see him, and yeah, you just discover, you figure out bit by bit that maybe it's not exactly what you remembered it as, and there's a big reveal, and I won't say anymore. But stylistically, in terms of score, in terms of narrative structure, this is as good as I can make it, at least at this stage of my life, and it seems like people like that piece
Well received.
very, very much. Yes, very well received.
I saw you also had a project with Danny Trejo.
Yes.
It's like a Western. Can you tell us a little bit about that project?
So that was my first U.S. project. So that was about a year and a half ago now. Ace Salvador, so my best friend and producer here, basically heard about these two guys, these two actors who are Josh and Everett, good friends now. They came up with this concept for a Western. They wrote it, and we were very lucky to secure Danny Trejo. Don't ask me how they did it. I assume a bit of money. I assume a bit of, you know who I'm talking to, blah, blah, blah. Networking and whatnot. And a great experience, 3-day shoot, big production, at least for me, about a, 90-person crew, whatever. So, no, that was pretty big. We shot on Paramount Ranch, which is burnt recently because of the wildfires. So we can never do it again.
No sequel.
No sequel. Well,
it could be in outer space.
It could be in outer space, which is exactly how we left things off. So it was great. Very good experience. Lovely to work with Danny. I call him Danny now. And I don't. And he was great. He was really good fun. He was, we had to make him crawl on the floor, and he was a good sport. Like, it's not a lot of stuff. He doesn't need to do this, and he was game to like just be the bad guy and crawl in the dirt and turn around and have fake blood in his face and whatnot. Cool. It was a great experience. I loved it.
So we're going to quickly segue. I'm going to tell our home audience who is doing the behind the scenes. Right here, I have an iPad that lets me see all the different questions you guys may have for Charlie here, who is a commercial director who's also working on a lot of different great projects. So if you have anything you'd like to ask him, now's your chance. As I ask him this question, then I'll start gathering what you guys have. So what would be the biggest low point you've had, career-wise? Kind of walk us through that.
Where to start?
Just give me one or two.
One or two. No, after my little stint in Germany and all the commercials with my Russian mentor, I felt like, I didn't have that many, but like 3 or 4, and they were pretty good quality. Some for Danone, it was well paid. It was good, and I assumed this would be a great transition to then move back to London and start from there and get representation, whatever. And then again, the credit crisis just hit so hard, and the advertising field was just decimated for like a year or so. And this is exactly the time when I decided to move back. Not obviously that I expected this to happen,
Yeah.
but that was really tough, and that was an awakening. Another thing, part of that was to realize that a lot of this work was in, say, Russian or Turkish, and the quality of the work was excellent. You know, great production, wonderful teams, slow motion, whatnot. But again, the fact that it wasn't for like Western brands, or even if it was in a different language, did not help sell myself much in the UK, at least not in the London sphere, which is very much, you know, its own thing, and is a little, it's a lot of you know, who you know, let's put it this way. So that was a big rude awakening.
So you had to reinvent yourself, is that what you're saying?
Had to
And how
reinvent.
did you do that? Like, you know, your work is not coming in.
Sure.
You know,
So
how did you do that?
had to do that by going back to a lot of post-production work at the start, and that somehow actually ended up being a good way to. The internet changed a lot of things. This is really the time when just the bandwidth of, you know, the connection, the quality of the internet, like, just started exploding. Again, YouTube was really becoming a thing. Facebook was really becoming a thing, et cetera, et cetera. So much more work appeared that was for online. And that was great because you needed to be able to do like smaller shoots. You didn't need like the caliber of production of, like, you know, 100K a day kind of thing. You could achieve with cameras that were cheaper but almost as good. Could achieve very good, decent quality for cheaper, faster. And so that was a great way to sort of like spring back into directing and creative direction and all that.
Sounds good. Let me
yeah.
quick see what. Okay, so how is the film industry in the UK versus the US? And what were some of the favorite projects that you've worked on?
So I did not work too much in the film industry in the UK, mostly in the advertising industry in the UK. That being said, I do know lots of people who are in it. It's definitely a lot smaller than the US. There's no doubt about it. London is the center of virtually everything. There's some production going on, you know, in Wales or in Manchester or sometimes in Scotland, and a lot of that has to do with local film funds, regional funds. And the BBC also is a huge work provider for people who are, you know, say up north or in other parts of the country. But if you want to work in film in the UK, you basically have to move to London. It's kind of that simple. And, you know, it's a small world. Word of mouth goes around real fast. If something bad happens, like, the other half will know instantly.
Yeah.
Not that that has happened to me, but I know it has happened to others.
And moving to LA, how is that different?
So moving to LA, so I'm discovering more and more. Well, the visa procedure was a bitch, if I may say that. That was difficult. It was expensive. That took a year. It was just very strenuous. Emotionally, really annoying, having to jump through so many hoops that some unelected, faceless bureaucrat somewhere places in front of you, and, you know, has overwhelming power
But when
over
you
your
finally
application.
overcame all that,
So once you overcome all that, coming here was, again, there was a bit of an awakening. I worked for 3 months. I was doing a lot of script reading for somebody called Lee Stobie, who's a manager, and he had a lot of scripts, and I assumed, this is Hollywood, this is LA, everybody's going to be like the next Spielberg and whatnot, or is going to have that sort of, you know, those skills. And I realized that there's so much work and there's such a draw that actually the people who are really, really good at this are just the best on the planet. There's no doubt about it. But there's a lot of not such great work, not such reliable people. I was like, okay, so finding my way to meet the people who are really serious about it, and I'd like to think that I am one of those. At least I do try hard to prove that. That was, there was a bit of an awakening there of like, there's a process and there's a lot that you should avoid. You could, you know, like a bottomless pit of wasted time associating yourself with the wrong people. I didn't do too much of that, just a little bit here or there, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna pull
I think
back.
we all have. We've all been in that situation where you meet like
sure.
the wannabe crowd or the people that are actually doing stuff, and then there's kind of this in between people who are very talented but may not have the exposure as
sure.
you know, the top A-list
course.
people that we're used to seeing.
Yeah. It sounds negative, but I must say the opportunities are amazing. It's
Yeah.
just about connecting with the right people and just having, I guess, the skills and the perseverance to really go for it. Let me get back to you in a year. Let me tell you whether I did that all right or not. But it's on its way, it seems.
So the next question is actually very similar to the one I was going to ask you. Is, I mean, this show is called The Vault, and it's all about getting further faster. If you could talk to the younger Charlie, you know, giving advice, what are some of the secrets that you've learned now that you could give your younger self?
don't choose that career. It would be a little of a bit of an awakening that I got a few years ago, was to reverse engineer the process, to think in reverse. So let me explain that quickly. A lot of people think, and I certainly did, that filmmaking of any kind is a linear process. You start by writing, and then you shoot, and you raise the money, blah blah blah, and then you edit, and then you put the music at the end. You can do it that way, and you can have great results, not a problem. But if you think, if you reverse engineer the process, if you really try to create a final product in your mind at least, which includes score, which includes a certain pacing, a certain edit, you're likely to start the process, literally the writing process, much better. This is a reason why this Gone Dark short film of mine is so good, but is good and is effective. I literally started with the score. Then I wrote the story according to, I knew which tunes I was going to use. And magically things like, click perfectly in the edit. Well, there's no magic to it. It's literally just engineering the process. And as opposed to put this in a different context. If you're not thinking as to how the product is going to be consumed at the very, very end, things might not align perfectly, or it may not feel like they're terrible, but it could be better. And the process would be the same thing if, say, you go to an architect and you go to another whatever designer and you say, oh, build me a house that's like that, and XYZ, here are the specs. And you don't make the guy who's going to create the roof and the dude who's going to create the swimming pool, because you can afford a swimming pool, of course.
Yeah, of course.
You don't make these people talk to each other at the very start. Then you come at the end and you try to put all these elements together. Yeah. Is it really going to fit perfectly? I mean, it's going to work to some extent, but really I can't overstate how understanding that what you need to create is a together product, and thinking in that way, and again, reverse engineering the process, really will help you start it much more effectively. That's number one. And number two, understanding the hierarchy, the food chain, where you rank, and who ranks just above you but not too far above you, and again, associating yourself with the right people. If you're the hardest person, hardest working person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I know I've done that a lot.
Yeah.
And just dragging people along as opposed to making yourself an asset to people who are just above you, not too far above, because you'd be wasting their time, but the people who are slightly above, make yourself an asset for them so they pull you up slowly. That's a concept that took me a long time to understand.
That's a great piece of advice. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I think they all thank you too. So I guess we're just going to end with, tell us where, what other tips do you have for, people who are trying to make show business a business, creative minds who want to try to monetize their skills?
I would say too much of what's out there. There's so much content. There's so much material. Too much to me seems to be just quote unquote nonsense. Doesn't mean you have to make a meaningful philosophical product, whatever. But if you have some kind of message that's worthy of being heard, it's just going to make the piece better. Okay, you want to do stupid hidden camera videos, not a problem. I'm the first one to laugh at those, right? But if you want to have a real career, whatever it is that you say, try to make sure that it's worth hearing. Simple as that. And I would say that starts with the writing. And if you can sort of summarize your key message, your core advice, whatever it is, life tip, to a single sentence, you're probably on the right track. For Gone Dark, for example, I'm going back to this example because it's the one I know best.
Yeah.
The core message, which had to do with the lead actress, her personal experience, and some of my own experiences, and I'm sure everybody else could, feel familiar to that, is at some point, if something or someone is too toxic in your environment, it's actually better to just cut it off and to go your own way. So we summarized that to a single sentence, and it really gave us, literally looking at the sentence was right, well that gives you a now, a before, that it just instantly, the structure of the story was right there in that single piece of advice. And if somebody doesn't quite know how to write a script or how to go about it or what message is worthy, I would say go on Instagram, go on one of these inspirational quotes type of things. Some are a little cheesy and a little, off, but some are really good, really excellent. And you can just grab one of them and just really analyze the grammar, the structure of it. And it's going to give you a cue as to there's a character here, and there's a before and an after, and then just expand from that. That's the simplest way, I would say, to find a worthy piece of advice that you can expand into a story that is worth telling.
I've heard from the greats that less is more.
For sure.
And this multi-Grammy winning client of mine told me that if you can tell this huge story in just as few words,
Yep.
that's like the hardest skill to learn. But once you learn it, that people just love it, and that's just a huge asset.
I concur. In my humble experience, that man is right, and I guess
Yeah.
worthy of his Grammys.
Yes, yes.
Or
Great.
person.
Well, I just want to say, once again, thanks for coming on The Vault. We want to know one more time, we're going to have some graphics on the bottom, but
Sure.
where do you live online? Where can people find you?
My website is my name, www.charleshjoslain.com, and I have an Instagram that I have never used, but I do intend on using, and I think it is Charles_H_Joslain. I think is what it is. But there's not a million Charles
We'll
Joslain.
put it on the
anyway.
bottom, and then this might be the first thing that goes on that Instagram account. So we'll spread the word, and just
One day I'll make something out of it.
let
I
everyone
promise.
know about all your great projects. That's really what this is all about, and we are once again grateful that you were here.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right,
care.
take care.